Good evening. Welcome to the Housing Authority of the City of Salem meeting for Monday, September 25th, 2023. Would the recorder please call the roll?
Commissioner Nishioka.
Here.
Vice Chair Phillips.
Here.
Commissioner Gwynn.
Here.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Here.
Commissioner Hoy.
Here.
Commissioner Nordyke.
Here.
Commissioner Barney.
Here.
Resident Commissioner Villegas. Absent. Chair Stapleton.
I'm here. Thank you. All right. Would Trevor, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Vice Chair Phillips, do we have any additions or deletions?
Not tonight.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment? Okay, no public comment tonight. Vice Chair, the consent calendar?
I move the consent calendar.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Moved by Phillips, seconded by Nishioka. Do you want to read it for me?
Yeah, tonight's consent calendar consists of 3.1A, the August 28, 2023 draft Salem Housing Authority minutes, and 3.3A, adoption of fiscal year 2023 to 2024 Housing Authority operating budgets and HUD certification. And that concludes the consent calendar.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? No, seeing none. Would the recorder please call the roll?
Commissioner Gwynn.
Aye.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Aye.
Commissioner Hoy.
Aye.
Commissioner Nordyke.
Aye.
Commissioner Barney.
Aye.
Commissioner Nishioka.
Aye.
Vice Chair Phillips.
Aye.
Resident Commissioner Villegas absent. Chair Stapleton.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. All right, we have no public hearings and no special orders of business, but we do have our normal monthly information report. Would you like to please lead us with that, and we'll follow up with any questions?
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Nicole Yates. I'm the Housing Administrator for Salem Housing Authority. And I hope you do enjoy another program management report that reflects all of the work that was completed by the Housing Authority during the month of August. It was very busy for the agency, including many events such as National Night Out, Camp Rosenbaum, Shop with a Cop, Back to School, some new adventures that we've had. We've outlaid all that information in the program management report. I also think it's very important to highlight all of the work that the various departments do within the agency. I have been asked to give a high-level update on the reorganization and strategic plan that the Housing Authority has been working on over the last year. Some of our main highlights have that we have created succession ladders and employee development within the agency. That includes having more capability for our line staff to develop into management level roles and working with the different line staff to see what their career developments are. We've expanded our information and technology department, including the fact that we're going through a software conversion that during these times, and we're still working on converting completely. We've created 2 new positions, the Assistant Housing Administrator roles. We have the Assistant Housing Administrator of Development and Strategy, which is Jessica Blakely, and the Assistant Housing Administrator for Over Operations now, who is seeing our over day-to-day operations for all of the different various programs. We've created a special programs manager that once many of you knew as the HRAP team. The special programs manager now sees all oversight of all the various different special programs that we do, including our outreach, our navigation, our landlord navigation, our family self-sufficiency programs, and our project-based vouchering programs. We've also added a portfolio manager who can go through all of our assets and ensure that our development strategies are working for the best benefit of all the different properties. We've added a maintenance supervisor and a maintenance supervisor role that now sees over our oversight of all of the maintenance department. And of course our communications role, which we're hoping that you're seeing the continued increase in our communication output out into the community. We also have a grants management analyst, which has allowed us to bill and receive payments much quicker on our grant side, which has helped us analyze all the various different grants coming into the agency. We are still working through the process of rebranding. We have hired an attorney with the help of City Attorney Dan Atchison, and we are hoping within the next 12 to 24 months being completely converted over to a moving to work agency, and that should help us swiftly move into rebranding the entire agency. I'm open to any questions over the program management report.
Thank you. It was a really great report. I appreciate all the work that goes into it. I was really excited to see pictures of Sequoia Crossing and how that's coming along, so thank you for those. Are there any other questions? Oh, sorry. Oh, okay. Sorry, is that better? Okay. Seeing no other questions, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Call to order the meeting of the Urban Renewal Agency for the City of Salem for Monday, September 25th, 2003 to order. If the recorder will please call the roll.
Board Member Stapleton.
I'm here.
Board Member Nishioka.
Here.
Board Member Phillips.
Here.
Board Member Gwen.
Here.
Board Member Gonzalez.
Here.
Board Member Hoy.
Here.
Board Member Nordyke.
Here.
Board Member Varney.
Here.
Chair Hoy.
Here. Councilor Stapleton, do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Not tonight.
All right. Do we have any? Nobody signed up for public comment for the Urban Renewal Agency. Councilor Stapleton, the consent calendar.
I move approval of the consent calendar.
Second.
Councilor?
Thank you. Tonight, we only have one item. It's item 3.1A, the August 28th, 2023 draft Urban Renewal Agency minutes, and that concludes the consent calendar.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Will the recorder please call the roll?
Board Member Gonzalez.
Aye.
Board Member Hoy.
Aye.
Board Member Nordyke.
Aye.
Board Member Varney.
Aye.
Board Member Stapleton.
Aye.
Board Member Nishioka.
Aye.
Board Member Phillips.
Aye.
Board Member Gwen.
Aye.
Chair Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes. We have no public hearings, no special orders of business, but we do have an information report. Ms. Rutherford, did you have anything for us on that?
The information report is just purchases, administrative purchases, and there are two items in that information report. One is tied to a grant in our North Gateway Urban Renewal area, and the other item is tied for architectural services to look at the Marion Parkade and ways we can further open that up and kind of change the functionality and the appearance of that parkade.
Thank you. Are there any questions? All right. Seeing no further business for the Urban Renewal Agency, we are adjourned. Call this meeting of the Salem City Council for Monday, September 25th, 2023 to order. If the recorder will please call the roll.
Councilor Stapleton.
I'm here.
Councilor Nishioka.
Here.
Councilor Phillips.
Here.
Councilor Gwen.
Here.
Councilor Gonzalez.
Here.
Councilor Hoy.
Here.
Councilor Nordyke.
Here.
Councilor Varney.
Here.
Mayor Hoy.
Here. Councilor Stapleton, do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Not tonight.
All right. We're going to go straight to council and city manager comments, and I know our city manager has a comment.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and members of council, and everybody that's gathered here this evening. I didn't know Most Dadley, but I wish I would have. I've learned a lot about him over the past 2 weeks since this case came to my attention. Mo sounds like a great guy, good father, good community member, and a well-respected firefighter. Anyone who serves their community for 30 years deserves our respect. Mo has my respect. I'm sorry that the city's actions have conveyed a different message. That was not our intention. After receiving further input from City Council earlier this evening, I have directed City Attorney Dan Atchison to withdraw the petition to the Oregon Supreme Court to review the decision of the appeals court. I hope that this action brings peace and closure to Mo's family, to his fellow firefighters, and to the community. The appeals court has ruled, and we will accept that ruling and its operational and financial implications. The Stadley family will be compensated. Our firefighters, and frankly all firefighters throughout the state, can feel more confident that they and their families are protected from the ravages of cancer that disproportionately affect firefighters. With this decision, I hope that we can start the hard work of repairing relationships that were damaged in this process. Workers' compensation law and the facts of this case are complicated and dynamic. We relied on expert outside counsel to inform our decision-making. Reading the appeals court decision and learning more about the circumstances related to Mo's case have clarified for me that while we may have legal argument to continue this case, the right thing to do is to bring this process to an end. The end. Thank you.
Thank you. I will just say that, we're tasked with making many decisions as a city council, and I know we struggled with this decision before, and after further information and further reflection, I think we all realized that we made a mistake. And I don't think it's a sign of weakness to change your decision or admit a mistake. I think it's a sign of people understanding what's right and what's not, and we all realized that this was the right thing to do. And I'm happy that we are able to move forward, and I am very sorry for the harm we've caused to Mo's spouse. So, thank you. Are there any additional councilor comments? Councilor Nordyke.
I want to thank everyone for coming down here to support Mo and Tina. I think that tonight is important. You are not a number on a spreadsheet. You're a firefighter. You run towards danger, not away from it. And so if you get hurt on the job, if you contract cancer from firefighting, if you die after over 25 years of service to our people, my family, your families, the city needs to have your back. So I am really happy to hear, I'm really delighted to see the change of the tide on this one. And all of you came down here and made that presence known to every member of council, to our city manager, to all of our city department heads. It's you who showed up here tonight. It's that blood, sweat, and tears that you put in as firefighters, as spouses and family members of firefighters. You're the reason why I think people have seen the light, and I appreciate each and every one of you for being here today. The fact of the matter is we need our firefighters, and we have to treat everyone who shows up to work, working super hard in dangerous conditions. A friend of mine sent me a treatise on the occupational hazards facing firefighters over the weekend. It was over 700 pages long. And boy, did I get an education on just some of the dangers that firefighters face. Exposure to asbestos, the burning of silica and synthetic materials. The list went on, and it really impressed upon me just how risky this work is and how sinister that things like cancer can creep up on you. And I have cancer in my family. So anyway, I don't come from a firefighter's background, but you have my utmost respect. So thank you all for being here, for standing up for what's right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any additional comments? Councilor Gonzalez.
I also want to thank everybody for coming, and it's unfortunate that this is why, but really if we had more people like this show up, we'd have a different city. And I just wanted to thank Irma. She hosted a great event this weekend. Viva Salem. Just wanted to thank Irma for she was like a one-person show. Just wanted to thank her publicly.
Thank you, Councilor. Further comments? Councilor Nishioka.
Thank you. I'll just also add my respect and appreciation to Irma for all of the work she did for Viva Salem. It was a great event. I was delighted to attend and see the very large crowd, and everyone was having fun. So that was wonderful. Thank you, Irma.
Thank you, Councilor. Any additional comments? Councilor Gwynn.
I just wanted to again say thank you to all of you that showed up tonight. And although this particular case is about firefighters, it goes beyond that. It's to all of our city employees and first responders. You know, you all should know that we do have your back, and I stand with Mo.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Hoy. Councilor Hoy, I can't see your hand, but is it just checking in to make sure whether it's up or not? Did you want to comment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry for the delay. I'm just blown away by the contribution of so many from so many different places in support of this family who has had to fight really hard. And I'm thankful for this reversal, so to speak, and just want to reiterate what Councilor Gonzalez said and how important it is that we participate at these levels. And I just acknowledge that, and thank you to Manager Staley for your words, and I look forward to moving forward with better business. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any additional comments? All right. We are on then to proclamations. I'm going to just read a proclamation, then I'll ask staff to come down and receive it. I'm going to read it from the desk. Whereas community planning manages change in cities, towns, rural areas, and suburbs, and provides opportunities for all residents to be meaningfully involved in making choices that determine the future of their community. And whereas realizing the benefits of planning requires public officials and residents who understand, support, and demand excellence in planning and plan implementation. And now whereas the American Planning Association endorses National Community Planning Month as an opportunity to highlight how planning is essential. Whereas planners work to improve the well-being of people living in our communities, taking a comprehensive perspective which leads to safer, more resilient, equitable, and prosperous communities. And whereas the City of Salem planners help ensure that changes to built environment align with the community's vision for future growth and development. Now, therefore, I, Chris Hoy, Mayor of the City of Salem, do hereby proclaim October 2023 as National Community Planning Month and recognize the valuable contributions made by both the City of Salem's professional planners and our volunteers who serve on the Salem Planning Commission, dated this 25th day of September 2023. I would like to invite Lisa Anderson Ogilvie and any of her staff that she would like to bring with her to receive this.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to take this opportunity to invite members of the public to a planning event we have on Monday, October 2nd, next Monday, for Planner Palooza. So it's an event at Fork 40 Food Hall. We'll have games, planners that you can mingle with, food, and prizes. So if you've ever wanted to talk to a planner about planning or Salem or what makes Salem great, come on, or you just want to win a prize, come on down to Fork 40 Food Hall next Monday for Planner Palooza. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. I apologize. I'm attempting to multitask and I'm not doing it well. All right, we are on to public comment. We do have a number of folks signed up. If council does not object, I will reorder the agenda and allow folks signed up under number 8 to speak now. Is that all right with all of you? Great. We will start down the list. and we will start with Matt Brozovich. If you come up to the podium, be sure and hit the button so the green light is on. Introduce yourself, your address or your ward for the record. Reminder, you have 3 minutes. When the yellow light starts flashing, that means you have a minute left. When the red light comes on, that means your time's up.
Good evening, Matt Brozovich, Ward 5. And the proud president, I'm sorry, Ward 4, my bad.
I was going to say, I didn't think you lived in North Salem.
The proud president of Salem Professional Firefighters and the organizer of tonight's events. I'm going to go off my script a little, but I want everybody to meet Mo. And more importantly, I want you to meet Mo's wife, Tina. Tina's with us tonight. She flew in just so she could be here. And unfortunately, over the last couple of days, we've had to bring in people like Representative Salinas, Representative Hoyle, Representative Patterson, Representative Reed, and a host of other people to get where we got, which I think is pretty sad. Mo was a 28-year veteran of the city of Salem, 28-year firefighter, 28-year paramedic, and somebody who faithfully helped people within the city for 28 years without a single blip. The only time Mo took off was actually when he got cancer. Mo got cancer, went into remission, and then still came back to a job he loved at nearly 61 years old. If we take a trip back to March 16th, 2009, the House passed cancer presumption for firefighters, 58-1, and the Senate, 29-1. This presumption, which we like to also call law, was signed in by Governor Ted Kalinowski. For all firefighters, they're paid professional firefighters that contract job-related cancers. This is very simple for us. We don't get a rundown of what we're going on before we go. When the bell rings, we go. We don't care who it's for, when it is. We hop on the truck and we go. We've had 2 additions to cancer presumption, including our last legislative session, which added bladder and GI and reproductive organs for females. That shows the legislature believes in this. While they're scaling back everything else, they continue to add to firefighter worker comp benefits for cancer presumption. They care about this. It means our livelihood. It means that our employer stands behind us. Because I think it was a pretty clear message that was sent to my fellow firefighters when this got denied not once, not twice, but 3 times. So thank you, Mayor, City Manager, City Council, for reversing this decision. This is a big move for the City of Salem, righting a wrong for Tina. I still believe, Tina, we owe you a public apology. On behalf of the city, from working on the union side, I apologize to you for the last 4 years. I hope you can move on and find peace. And again, this is who we're here for tonight. This isn't about me. This isn't about the 250 people in red shirts. This is the guy that faithfully served the city of Salem for 28 years. Thank you.
Jeremy Kramer. And next up, we'll have Greg Sandberg, if you want to come up to the other podium. Hit that green button for me. There you go. Perfect.
Great. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jeremy Kramer. I'm an executive board member of the Marion County Professional Firefighters. I didn't know Mo as well as a lot of you did, but I did work with him. I had the pleasure of working with him many times early on in my career. And he was always a very gentle, kind person. Always had a kind word for everybody. Everybody loved him. And I commend you guys for making this reversal tonight. But I'm still angry. We should not be here. This should not be a fight that we have to fight for Tina and Mo. Very literally, and it's hard for civilians to understand, we put our lives on the line to fight fires, to go to medical responses. It's not a nebulous concept. We literally put our lives on the line, and that is evidenced by Mo. Mayor, you spoke of, the city manager, somebody did, I apologize. about the numbers and about though there may be a legal argument on behalf of City of Salem, it's not a moral argument. It's not an ethical argument. Mo is not a number. He's a man that should be here with Tina, enjoying his retirement and enjoying his family. And I want everybody to look around at all the red shirts in this room. We're the International Association of Firefighters. We're a family. Just 10% of the entire state of Oregon IAFF membership showed up here tonight for one man, for Mo. And we're going to do it every single time. When you think about making a choice that takes benefits away from firefighters and paramedics and emergency services workers in this city, we will be here in these same numbers to hold you accountable, to hold your feet to the fire. Councilor Nordyke talked about a rising tide or the tide turning tonight. Consider us a seawall. When that comes back, we will be shoulder to shoulder, standing and shouting and letting you know that you need to treat us with respect and treat our families with respect, and think about what we do for this city every single day to protect the citizens of this city in the Willamette Valley. Every time that crosses your mind, you think of this day and know that we will be here loud and proud and telling you we will not put up with it. Thank you.
Thank you. After Greg Sandberg, we have Nick Grice. Greg, go ahead and hit that button, and you've got 3 minutes.
That one?
You're good.
All right, good. All right. Hi, my name is Greg Sandberg. Can you hear me? All right.
Yes.
Greg Sandberg, Ward 4. I'm a retired captain for Salem Fire, and I knew Mo for over 30 years. I worked with him back at Metro West Ambulance down in Medic 9 in Tualatin. I had a presentation in PowerPoint, and you kind of got me on this monitor. It's over there, but I don't really need to do it because you reversed your opinion, or your the ruling, whatever. You withdrew it. At the end of the day, I was going to try and educate you on in 3 minutes on how bad cancer and how it relates to firefighters. So that was my whole PowerPoint. So I got 2 minutes and 18 seconds. All I can tell you is that, like most people said, Mo never complained. He's always very friendly. And even if he didn't like you, you didn't know it because he never said a word about it. So he's a great guy. We really lost a true, besides a patriot, a true kind individual that a lot of us could probably take some lessons from on how to be more of a civic person. And I'm shooting from the hip here, so this is not the speech I wanted to give. I had the other one all nailed down, but with that said, I second Jeremy's comments over there, and I certainly don't want to take any more time since I know there's a lot of people that want to speak. So, Council, thank you for allowing me to speak, and I'm going to turn it over to Nick.
Thank you. Nick, go ahead.
Yeah, Nick Grice, Ward 4, Secretary-Treasurer for Salem Professional Firefighters. This isn't the first time that Mo's name has been brought up in this council chambers. I was here on April 24th, 2003, when the proclamation was made for National Firefighter Day on May 4th. During that time, the mayor read a proclamation that mentioned the first line of duty death in the city of Salem back in 1935. It left off the ones that have happened since then. The second one was in 1986. It was a deputy fire marshal that died of a stroke while at a training session, and that was covered under the heart and lung presumption that was passed in 1961. And then Mo was the next one who died of cancer, obviously, and now is covered under the cancer presumption passed in 2009. Our job is always changing, and the threats that affect us change constantly as well. And that's why, as time has gone on, we've had these different presumptions that cover us. A new one is mental health is a crisis for firefighters. In 2022. The International Association of Firefighters added 469 names to its wall, a memorial wall in Colorado Springs. In 2003, or 2023, 574 more names were added. Roughly 75% of these people died of cancer. If you want to go after somebody for cancer, it shouldn't be the survivors. It shouldn't be the people who are dealing with the cancer. It should be the people that are causing this. The International Association of Firefighters has started filing lawsuits against chemical companies and the NFPA for negligence in allowing carcinogens to be in the very gear that we wear to protect us. So if you want to fight somebody, turn your attention toward the chemical companies, not toward the families and firefighters that are affected by it. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Jack Westerman and then Megan Westerman.
Oh, sorry, babe. Well, my name is Jack Westerman. I work for the City of Salem Fire Department, and on December 23rd of 2021, I got a pretty bad phone call saying I got cancer, and then had like 15 other phone calls that day, but the one that I remember the best was actually when Matt called to tell me that, hey, there's this thing called presumptive cancer for firefighters, and no matter what happens, your family will be taken care of. And so I didn't know really what the journey to healing, or if there was going to be healing, or what laid ahead. I didn't know what my prognosis was going to be, and I'm fortunate that it was good. But I had, even in all that movement of unknown and not knowing what was going to happen next, the one comfort I had is that if the worst case scenario takes place and I lose my life, my family's going to be taken care of. And now I don't know that I have that same confidence. So I'm grateful this appeal has been withdrawn, but again, we're more worried than we were before. So thank you.
Thank you. No, one more time. There you go.
Hi, my name is Megan Westerman, and I'm a spouse of a Salem firefighter. The man that just spoke, he was diagnosed with cancer in 2021, and I obviously was terrified because I'm a stay-at-home mom and I have 3 young kids at home. And I remember when he got the phone call saying that the union and the city would take care of him and his family if anything were to happen to him. And I am thankful and I'm appreciative that this was, that you guys changed your decision on this, but like he said, I don't, it's hard to have trust going forward, especially with what these brave individuals do on a daily basis and what they do for your city and what they do for your people. And when your people call for help, these are the people that are coming. And they're risking their lives, and they're risking getting cancer, and they're risking a bunch of other things that don't need to be stated, but the fact that they, going forward, are not going to feel protected and their families are not going to feel protected, it's a pretty scary thing to look at. And if his cancer comes back in the future, I don't have the faith that I had previously with his previous diagnosis. And so I just hope that, like the man that spoke earlier said, that if something were to happen like this again, that you guys would just remember this day and remember the people that are in this building fighting to serve your city and fighting to protect the people of Salem and the people of Oregon and the people, in the United States doing this job. So thank you.
Thank you. Next up we have, I apologize, but I can't quite read the writing. I know it's Sarah, is it Miracle? Merrick. Sarah Merrick, and then Lisa Breitbach.
Hello, my name is Sarah Merrick. I live in Ward 2. I also work for this city as a firefighter. I teach in this city, and I am connected to this city. With some of the statements that were made as to why this was brought to an appeals of, oh no, the sky is falling, our insurance rates will go up with workers' comp. I'd like to review a few things about workers' comp. I sit on the MLAC committee for the state, so this is something near and dear to my heart. In 2022, workers' comp took in a total of $998.6 million in insurance money coming into the state for insurance. $720 million was paid out. For the 11th year in a row, workers' comp insurance rates are going down. 11 years. When we think of the fact that the presumptive cancer was added to in 2009 from cancer or from heart and lung or heart and stroke, we've added twice more to it, and the insurance rates have not gone up. So to me, that is a very poor excuse. It speaks to me of homework not being done. I am very grateful that you reversed your decision and withdrew from the appeals court, but it isn't forgotten. And I hope moving forward that the right thing is what guides you and not political pressure. That's all I have to say.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Lisa Brightbaugh. I'm here as PCA president. We represent the 911 Communications Center here in Salem. I'm also the wife of a Salem firefighter. I had a different speech in mind. I'm very glad that I don't have to give most of it. I appreciate the reversal of the decision today. It's been quite a heartache and a lot of stress for our family and hundreds of people, obviously. So I appreciate that. It is disheartening that we had to come to this point, that we had to bring people in from far and wide to make the point, but I'm glad that it got there. We're very fortunate in our family so far. We haven't had cancer affect our family. My husband hasn't been affected. It's scary to think that we would have to go through the things that Tina's had to go through for years to get the benefits that he's earned in 20+ years of service. As a dispatcher, we send people out every single day to fires and medical calls and hazmat calls, all kinds of things to protect the city, to protect homes, families, pets, everything. Everything that the community has, they're here to help you and here to serve you. So I'm glad that whatever it was that brought you to this decision, that we got here today, I hope you'll keep this all in mind. There's a lot of brave, amazing people who've shown up here today to show their support, and I hope that this is the last time that something like this ever has to be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have, I apologize again on the last name, it's Mark's, is it Stenmetz? Stenmetal? I'm sorry. And Willie Giddings. How far off was I with your last name?
What's that?
How far off was I?
Close. Steinmetz.
Oh, Stein. Okay.
Yeah. Might be the handwriting.
It's all right.
My name is Mark Steinmetz. I'm a retired Salem firefighter. I retired in May of 2020. 31 years on the job. And I want to bring a little perspective here to Mo. I was Mo's captain when Mo passed away. And I was Mo's captain for a long time at Station 6. And so I spent a third of my life with Mo. And Mo was the type of guy, and this is going off script, so I'll throw this away. Mo was the type of guy that always wanted to do the right thing. And I'm just gonna say this as an example of one of the right things. We were on a call coming home, car pulled over the side. We did our usual thing, pull over, ask them if we can help, and it was a young couple moving to the area, actually moving to Portland area. Car broke down, they didn't have much money, barely enough money for gas, and they had a part that they needed to replace. They didn't have the money. Mo said, let's go buy the part. So we said, yeah, let's go buy the part. So we went and bought the part, brought it back to them, helped them install it, and send them on their merry way. That's just one example of the things that Mo wanted to do. Mo took care of the people. He took care of his firefighters. He worked hard, he worked tirelessly. He spent many nights past 11 o'clock washing turnouts so the firefighters the next day would have a clean set of turnouts. That was Mo in a nutshell. He didn't see a piece of mechanical equipment that he didn't like, and he didn't meet a person he didn't like. So with that being said, Mo wanted to do the right thing, always. And I'm going to commend you for reversing your decision and doing the right thing. What I will say is it's my understanding that this decision was probably made in a vacuum. I was a union vice president for a long time. We worked very hard and very closely with a lot of city council members, a lot of staff, and we always worked together. We had our differences of agreement, differences on issues, but we worked together, and we had, for a long time, good working relationships. Now, I've been out of the game here for 3 years. I don't know what the total relationship is, but it's my understanding that this was done kind of in a vacuum. A vacuum that leadership, that Local 314, can give you if you only reach out. And going forward, if you build that relationship with these folks, it'll only make things better for the fire department, the city management, and the citizens of Salem. And that should be the goal. And that's exactly what Mo would want. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Willie Giddings and Graham Trainer. You're Graham, right?
I'm Graham.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, go ahead.
Fantastic. Mayor Hoy, members of the Salem City Council, my name is Graham Trainer, and I'm proudly serving as president of the Oregon AFL-CIO. I'm usually in a suit. These are my rally and fighting clothes. We're the statewide federation of unions and a voice for all working people. And thank you for the opportunity to briefly share comments today on something incredibly important to the entire labor movement, not just firefighters. My role here this evening is to bring the voices of nurses, of teachers, of construction workers, of manufacturing workers, anyone who works for a living in this state, into these council chambers to express our deep concerns about the appeal that we've been talking about of Tina Stedeli's rightful workers' compensation death benefit. And I'm grateful for the change of heart, but I'm going to still say my words. You see, the Oregon labor movement and Oregon's unions are often the last line of defense for working people. We show up in the halls of Congress, in our state's capital, and in city council chambers just like this to speak truth to power, to make policy better for working people, and to pass laws that protect us and keep us safer on the job. And that's why it's been the entire labor movement here in Oregon, working alongside our professional firefighters who have proudly fought to expand access to workers' compensation benefits and break down barriers to accessing these benefits in the ways that they were intended. Every single time that there's been a discussion in this Capitol about adding a presumption to our workers' compensation laws to recognize the unique exposures and risks facing certain occupations, it's been the entire Oregon labor movement that has made that a legislative priority, not just firefighters. And it's also the entire labor movement's job to defend these laws. Like most people hearing of this particular appeal for the first time, my initial reaction was of shock. And then to learn that the appeal happened while Tina Stedeli and many of your brave Salem firefighters were in Colorado Springs, where Mo Stedeli's name was being added to the National Fallen Firefighter Memorial, I was outraged. So on behalf of the over 300,000 working people of the Oregon AFL-CIO, I'm here to make it crystal clear that Oregon workers and the entire labor movement, we're watching, we'll continue to watch what happens on these types of issues in city council chambers like this, and working people will never stop fighting for workers and their families' safety, security, and peace of mind. Thank you for the opportunity to address you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Jeff Nutman and TJ Jensen. I'm assuming that Willie Giddings is not here.
Yeah, I don't see Willie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, figures.
Ready?
Yeah.
Good evening.
Jeff?
My name is Jeff Nutman. I'm a captain and a paramedic with Salem Fire Department, and I've been here for the last 21 and a half years. I'm a husband, a father of two, a son, a brother, and I'm a presumptive cancer survivor. I was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma in April of 2021. Once I caught my breath after a huge gut punch, I had to drive home and tell my wife the horrific news. After several tears and prayers, I got a plan in place with my doctors, and we were on our way. In the next several weeks, I underwent multiple tests, surgeries, But that's when the hard part began. I received 6 rounds of chemotherapy over the next 5 months. I had 32, yes, 32 different symptoms and signs and side effects of the cancer and the chemotherapy. I was hospitalized twice and once for 7 days at a Portland hospital because I was too sick to be where I was at. The only people I was able to see were the doctors and nurses and my wife. I wasn't even allowed to see my kids. When I received the news that I had cancer, I called Union President Matt Brozovic, and we had a long conversation, and he assured me that things would be fine. I needed to focus on my treatments, my health, and my family. It was comforting to know that my family would be taken care of. It was hard enough going through cancer, but to deal with the cancer treatments and to take care of my family and my finances at the same time was a burden that nobody had to go through. I'm not sure if any of you have ever...
I am sorry to interrupt you, but your microphone, I just realized, is not on. Could you?
I'll talk louder. I don't care.
I could hear you just fine, but I think the people
How about
online
that? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I could hear you before. I just think.
Can you hear me now? Okay, keep my time going because I might be here a while.
No worries.
Okay, I'm not sure if any of you have had cancer, or most of you might have known people with cancer. Okay, it's a horrible disease. It takes a toll on you and your family, and since I've had cancer, every day has been a bonus. I was lucky. Cancer didn't take me. Okay? It's like a thief. It stole so many things from me. It stole Mo from us. Okay? And like a thief, you guys wanted to steal more. You know what? At the Salem Fire Department, we have a document. It's called The Right Thing. It's a 22-page document. It's called The Right Thing. It outlines the philosophy and the cultures that we go by. I knew Mo for 45 years, longer than Tina known him. Okay, 45 years. We grew up in the same town. We volunteered and we worked together. He spent decades responding to calls for help of the people who voted for each and every one of you. Okay, and he saved many of those lives. For 28 years, Mo did his job. Thank you for stepping up and doing yours. Have a good night.
Thank you. Hit that button for me, TJ. Well, there you go. You got it.
There we go. Good evening. My name is TJ Jansen. Obviously, that's a nickname, but it's what I went by when I was an employee here at City of Salem. I was a Salem police officer for 21 years. My husband was one for 29 and a half years. He got to retire in the normal way. Unfortunately, I was injured on the job and had to retire due to a medical disability after 2 motorcycle accidents, both on duty and a fall through a roof. Also on duty, I ended up being permanently disabled. I'm still disabled today. I'm on medication 24/7. And the City of Salem, I thought, initially stood by me. They supported my retirement. I didn't have to fight for benefits. I didn't have to fight for medication or my doctor's appointments until 10 years after I retired. And then they called me in for an independent medical exam and took away my benefits from workers' comp. So I know how the city can treat you right. I also know how the city can treat you wrong. And as a police officer, we stand with the Salem Fire Department. We stand with the family of Mo. I was asked by another police officer who also had to go out on a disability to be here tonight or to start a rally involving Salem police officers. I don't know if there's any other police officers in the group or not, but I've been retired now for 20 years. My payments, my disability, my medications quit being covered 10 years ago. And I've been covering the cost myself ever since. So thank you for reversing your decision for Mo and for Tina's sake. Do the right thing in the future and don't don't hurt your employees after they're gone by trying to treat them the right way while they're here and then forgetting about them 10 years later.
Thank you. Next up, we have Steve Brown and Carl Koenig.
I'm going to read this or otherwise I'll screw it up.
Okay.
My name is Steve Brown. I live on 29th Court in Ward 8. Salem's been my home for 38 years. My wife and children were born and raised here. My grandchildren are now 5th generation Salemites. So yeah, I care about Salem and its citizens. I met Mo in 1991, shortly after I returned from the Army and started my medic training at Schmeketa. A few years later, I was hired as a new firefighter medic with the city and worked together with Mo on A shift. Now you're all probably thinking that's nice, another friend telling us what a great guy Mo was. And that's true. But there's more to it than that. See, it's very personal to me, because I shouldn't be standing here. On the morning of January 6, 2006, I had a doctor's appointment. At noon, he sent me to the hospital for a CAT scan. At 4 o'clock, I got to call Station 4, our hiring station, and tell them I wouldn't be back to finish the shift. In fact, I was never coming back. Then I had to drive home and tell my wife that I had stage 4 esophageal cancer that had metastasized to my liver, and I might have 2 to 3 months to live. To say that was a kick in the gut would be an understatement. I was only 38 years old. I had 2 kids, 4 and 7. My wife was a stay-at-home mom. How were they going to survive? So I applied for PERS disability, so at least when I died, my family would get $2,800 a month. Mo wasn't so lucky. He wasn't able to get his retirement approved before he died, so Tina didn't even get that, even though he'd spent 28 years in PERS. Oregon didn't have cancer presumption for firefighters then, like many other states, so I didn't even apply for workers' comp because we knew it would be denied. The following legislative session, my case was used as one of the examples of why cancer presumption for firefighters needed to be in Oregon. And thanks to them, we've had that protection since July of 2009. Now you guys were trying to take that away too. Thank you for reversing your decision. You see, I'm the lucky one. So after 32 months of countless rounds of chemo and experimental treatments, 16 CAT scans, colonoscopies, endoscopies, 45 pounds of weight loss, months of massive daily doses of morphine and Dilaudid just to endure the pain, I was declared cancer-free. But in April 2010, I returned to Salem Fire, finished my career, and I retired last year. Again, I'm the lucky one. It didn't work out that way for Mo. And without the cancer presumption, he would have nothing. So that's why we're all here. That's why we were angry. That's why we came out in force. It's the law. All you were asked to do was just follow the law. So I'm glad you reversed your decision, and I'll leave it at that. But I stand with Mo. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, councilors, Carl Koenig, for the record, I'm the president of the Oregon State Firefighters Council. We represent 3,700 professional career firefighters, paramedics, and EMTs throughout the entire state. I certainly had a different presentation for you all tonight. And you've heard it from several people here, fortunate enough to actually respond and take care of people with Mo. And for that, I have a personal relationship with him and his family, is that he is a caregiver above everything else, whether that's to his family, whether the foster kids he took care of, to the people who he needed to render aid with, and fires he put out. So we're certainly, and you've heard it, we're certainly appreciative of you reversing your decision on appeal. But where do we go from here? Here's where we need to go. The Oregon State Firefighters participate in the Management Labor Advisory Committee as one of the 4, and you are fortunate enough to have a Salem firefighter, paramedic on that committee who represents our interests being labor and there's the same equal number on management. And what we need to do as employers and elected officials is make sure that stuff like this doesn't happen again. That we don't think the charge to figure out if 656-802 applies in the city of Salem, that we have clear and concise laws that allow you to go, it's very unfortunate, Tina, that you lost your husband. I want you to know, as a group, we are not ever going to leave your side. That's our expectation. That's why you have 250 people here. We have unconditional love for everyone who needs our help. We have unconditional love of our brothers and sisters to take care of those who can't take care of themselves or can't put out a fire themselves. I challenge not only this city council, but your third-party administrator to come to those meetings. They'll see me. I'm at every one. We talk about the things that affect our members when they're hurt on the job, whether it's cancer, whether it's falling through a roof, or whatever, and making sure that we administer those benefits fairly, evenly, and consistently, specifically for firefighters, but as Graham said, all workers. Whether you're management or labor, doing the right thing is absolutely easy if you've got the best interest of the person involved. Thank you again for your reversal. I challenge you as an employer and as elected officials to make sure your voice is heard in the way it was heard by repealing this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Scott, is it Hukari? Scott Hukari and Dacia Graber. Scott, are you here? Oh. You're not Scott. Looks like you're up, Dacia.
All right. Thank you, Mayor Hoy and Salem City Councilors. For the record, my name is Dacia Graber, and I am here before you tonight with 3 different hats on. The first is as a firefighter for over 23 years, and now a professional firefighter with IFF Local 1660. A state representative for House District 28, that's Southwest Portland, Beaverton. It's not Salem, but I do spend a lot of time here. And this is hard, but most importantly, the wife of a cancer survivor, also a professional firefighter. Mo lost his valiant battle with cancer on February 24th of 2019. On February 25th of 2019, a routine workplace physical found a large lump in my husband's neck. That was later determined to be, a month later, high-grade tonsillar cancer, throat cancer that had also metastasized. Sorry. I want to put a bit of a human face on this absolutely brutal cancer. It takes away your ability to speak. You can't swallow. You can't produce saliva. And the treatment is horrific. To the family and loved ones that have to sit there and support this, I can't even imagine it. And like Mo, my husband had the P16 marker. Like Mo, my husband, who was covered by SAFE, went through a fight with SAFE. That fight lasted 2 years, and we prevailed. That decision is now the basis of case law for Oregon, so this should never happen again. The International Agency for Research on Cancer has since that time, in June of 2022, come up with and thank you, Councilor Nordyke, for reading the 700-page memo that I sent you.
Not all 700.
Okay. That said, firefighting in and of itself is a grade 1 carcinogen. That means that firefighting in and of itself causes cancer. This blows presumption wide open. And as far as that genetic marker, P16, if you're over 35 in this room, 90% of you have that same genetic marker. It's an exposure to HPV, it's a genetic marker, and you know what? The reason 90% of the population doesn't have cancer is because 90% of the population aren't firefighters. It is what we do that leads to this.
So in my remaining 20 seconds, I want to put a final marker down, marker of my own, that we never have to be here to do this again, that everybody takes heed to the pain. Putting Tina and Angel and Mo's family through this is unconscionable. I am sick and tired of standing up and telling my family's story. It is brutal. This is a moment where we change how we do things. Thank you for reversing course. May we never have to stand here and fight this fight again.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. We are on now to Richard Rygard. That's you, Richard. Come on up. You go the other way. Well, okay.
How you put the button? It's on? Okay, I'll leave. Cool. I'll wait. Okay, remember me?
I do.
I went next day to your office.
Yes.
You sent me to another place. They kicked me out as soon as I got there when I asked for help. I asked you for help. I went there. They kicked me out. I went to your college here and went to ask for an advisor to lead me a legal way. They kicked me off the campus. Can't go back. I went to your Supreme Court, U.S. Supreme Court. They sent me over to this lawyer's office. They kicked me out right away for no reason. Now, where is your liberties and justice in this town? Because I ain't getting any. And the only reason I'm doing this is because I'm going to do it at the board, and I'm going to keep doing it until I get a lawyer. That's all I got to say.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, do you have anything to say about it, though?
Well, I still don't have any authority over the Oregon State Hospital. And I tried to direct you to
kick me out.
Hold on. I tried to direct you to a place that I thought could help you, and I still think they can help you. I can't help you with the Oregon State Hospital. I wish I could.
You could help me with a lawyer.
All right. Now we are up to Marcello Bigliardi and Pam Hegeman.
Thank you, City Council, Mr. Mayor, and I'm Marcello Bigliardi. I'm a resident of Ward 2, and I'm calling tonight to talk about the overlay, and we find that we are again faced with the proposed elimination of overlay zones, which represent some of the successful city planning accomplishment Salem has provided its residents and has served to effectively mitigate the impact of converting from residential to incorporating commercial uses. The result was that many homes along Commercial Street were seamlessly converted from homes into commercial spaces, providing mixed-use areas. Salem has a need for affordable housing. We agree with your goal, your values, and we share your desire to find equitable solutions, but think you may not understand the negative impact the elimination of the overlay zones and introduction of the proposed high-rise and high-density housing would have on Fairmont neighborhood. Because of time limitation, I will focus my attention on the area that will be most dramatically impacted by the removal of the superior rural overlay zone, the upper area of the Fairmont neighborhood, Fairmont Hill. And we'll focus tonight on the incongruous nature of inserting a 55-feet building into the surrounding neighborhood. Nor we will address the destruction of the architectural integrity, peace, and property values in our historical neighborhood, nor the loss of the city trees, nor the sense of betrayal of the social contract under which we bought our homes 35 years ago. Instead, tonight, we will begin by identifying two characteristics in the Fairmont neighborhood that make the high-rise housing density problematic, with a focus on the effect of significant population increase on traffic and parking, and number 2, issues of access egress, particularly in times of emergency. With the zoning changes and the introduction of high-rise density housing, there will be an enormous increase in the number of people that will be driving on the street and that are very narrow. Streets that were designed in the late 1800 and early 1900 to accommodate horse-drawn buggies, not cars, buses, big garbage trucks, moving vans, fire engine, etc. Currently, when there are vehicles parked on both sides of the streets, drivers have to wait their turn to pass, and large vehicles are challenged to even get through. So in brief, it's like we are not against having a mixed population, rental housing, and low income, higher income, mixed income. We like that. But I think the idea of having this high density and high-rise building, that's what we are against, because we feel that that is really changing the nature of the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Indeed, yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Pat Hageman.
Hello, thank you very much for hearing us tonight. My name is Pam Hageman. I live in Ward 2, and I am a resident of the Fairmont Hill neighborhood. And just following what Marcello was talking about, unlike newer neighborhoods, many of the homes in our area neither have garages or driveways, so residents park their cars on the streets. And with the increased number of people, that there would be more vehicles and, of course, more congestion, making movement within the neighborhood more difficult, and issues of safety increasingly problematic. An issue that demands attention and adds a critical level of complexity to issues of movement, safety, and access or egress is the topography of the hill. There's no street access on the entire north border of the hill because of the steep slope, with the exception of one, Saginaw Street, where Baker School is situated, and the associated preschool students, parental activity and traffic, school buses, etc. There's no street access on the entire western border of the hill, which is a cliff. There's no street access on the entire southern border of the hill because it's blocked by the cemetery. The only street access, the only arteries that feed the entire hill lie along the eastern border on Commercial Street. To complicate matters, only 4 of the 5 streets on the width of the hill provide access or egress to Commercial Street, which raises safety issues. There are only 4 streets to service approximately 317 homes and a large apartment complex, that being Lincoln, Washington, Superior, and Rural. Of these streets, Rural Avenue has the only traffic light, and we must turn left into the neighborhood without the aid of a turn lane or a turn signal. So we have to get into the middle of the intersection with the green light in hopes that we'll be able to turn left before the light turns red. And it's also a corner where kids and adolescents from the school, the high school over in the Bush Park area, gather and try to cross the street after school, during lunch, and so forth. So eliminating Saginaw rural overlay would allow the construction of high-density high-rise housing to consume the front half of 2 of the 4 blocks along Commercial and feed directly onto 2 of the 4 streets, or 50% of the access egress points for the entire hill. I understand that parking may not be provided, so streets would have to absorb the extra vehicles that would really place be very problematic in our neighborhood because we already park on the streets, the residents there. So it's very important, I think, that we just consider these high-density housing developments that could be met in a location that might serve the city a little bit better, in a little bit better way, instead of trying to squeeze it in that very small area in that area. Appreciate you listening. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Deborah Maloney, and then up after that is Sue Wells.
Hello.
No, you turned it off. Hit it one more time.
My name's Deborah Maloney, and I live on Fairmont Hill in Ward 2. And I would like to continue with the conversation about the overlay zone and the elimination of it. Residents from our neighborhood and from across the city frequently walk in our neighborhood with their children and dogs, and it's one of the most desirable attributes. And one of its most desirable attributes is the livability of the area. The introduction of a high-rise, high-density development would undermine, not support, the stated priorities of the City Council to have a workable, livable community. It must be noted that Fairmont Hill is a largely residential area and that the largely commercial area on Commercial Street begins south of Rural Avenue, where the zoning changes in high-rise buildings would make more sense, not in a thriving residential neighborhood. Also noteworthy, there are numerous vacant buildings downtown where other high-rise buildings are located. In this area, it seems that high-rise, high-density housing would benefit the community without unnecessarily damaging or destroying residential areas. There are also many vacant lots and underused lots along the Commercial Street corridor. There are also a lot of one-story business sites that could be converted to multi-use buildings, locating businesses on the bottom floor and residences on the floors above. We share your concern and desire to have more affordable housing in Salem and are convinced that the population increase associated with new high-density, low-rise development would represent a significant increase in housing, this is in relation to our neighborhood, while preserving the history, architecture, gardens, trees, and stately homes, including the Governor's Mansion, for future generations. These features make the area of value far beyond the monetary. Although these changes may be more modest and less ambitious than may have been anticipated or desired, they would be no less meaningful and would allow us to make changes that are commensurate with our abilities. I want to thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Sue Wells?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Sue Wells. I live in Ward 2. I am a mom of very young kids, aged 3 and 5, and live directly adjacent to the Superior Rural Overlay Zone at the edge of Commercial Street, bottom of Superior Street. And so between the edge of Commercial Street and the Fairmont Hill neighborhood. We cross Commercial Street every day, rain or shine or sweat, to walk to school. We walk to local parks, downtown, and the grocery stores above the hill. It is both a function of where we live and a choice we make. As walkers along the South Commercial Corridor, we intimately know the ins and outs of the streets, sidewalks, crosswalks, and alleys. We can tell you the best and worst places and times to cross commercial streets. And the places on our route we will have to make huge detours to avoid because it is not worth the risk to us with small kids. We know which houses have friendly cats, and we know the neighbors to check in on when there's a heat wave. We know this place because we walk. But walking here is not always easy. We've been yelled at from cars for crossing at legal crosswalks. We've had crossing lights so short that they changed before we could get across. And we know that people on this stretch of Commercial Street are usually going somewhere in a hurry in their cars. I know that reducing vehicle use by encouraging walking, biking, and transit is a major goal of the Salem Transportation System Plan for livability, pollution control, traffic, and meeting climate goals. However, given my experience as a pedestrian in this area, I believe that opening these areas up to higher and denser development achieves the goal of walkability on paper only, but not in practice. Ultimately, removing the overlay zones without first addressing the real walkability issues that exist here is putting the cart before the horse. Here's why. Commercial Street itself is not walkable. It offers little shade, no buffers between the sidewalk and road, heavy, fast, noisy traffic, and frequent vehicle movement in and out of commercial buildings. An example of this is my kids can't hear me when I talk to them when we're walking on Commercial Street. Sorry, I'm just a little nervous. Never done this before.
You're doing just fine.
Thanks. The paved alley that runs from Mission to Rural Street is the hidden key to this corridor's walkability to downtown along Commercial Street. I don't know if you can ever see a map, but there is an alley that runs from Mission to Rural Avenue. And it only works because commercial activity along its length is low and predictable. There are established shade trees and green space, and the aesthetic transition between homes and businesses is smooth. Another issue is transit access. Crossing Commercial or Liberty Street is currently unsafe to get the 21 bus route there. It's very unsafe. Trust me, I've done it with toddlers. The lack of protected crosswalks, the timing issues at the lights, and the dangers of crossing at unmarked intersections are massive barriers. So in conclusion, when walking is a choice, I would urge the City Council to make that choice easier. When walking, biking, and transit are the only options for folks, equity demands that the city ensure the way is safe, especially for vulnerable folks like young children, elderly, and disabled. A walkable city is an equitable city. I know I'm past my time, but thank you for listening to us. We really do care about this issue. We really welcome new development in neighbors, but we just ask that it be done thoughtfully. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Up next, we have Mark Wigg and John Prohotsky.
Thank you. I'm Mark Wigg. I live in Ward 2, and thank you for serving. What I would want from you folks is to ask staff how they came up with the height limits they came up with. Because when I go to the literature and the research, anything over, you get higher buildings, it's less safe, it's less community oriented, it's less energy efficient. It is not a good way to live. And numerous studies have shown that. So how, using their rationale for height limit, we should have 200-foot height limits because we just want to pack people in and we want more density. No, we want a better and a livable city. And when you go above 4 stories, you reduce the livability of your city. Look it up. There's plenty of documentation on it. And so I'm not worried about taking away the overlay zones. What I'm worried about is the mixed-use zone throughout the city. If we're allowing that sort of 7-story buildings up next to residential, it is not a good situation. And that's all I have to say. Just ask staff to please provide some justification of why 70 feet versus 35. Because the research has shown that's not where you want to go.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is John Prohotsky. I live in Ward 2, and I have some written testimony that, please accept my apology that I didn't get in earlier, but I've had many projects that kept me busy. But to get to the essence of this, I am not in favor of removing the overlay zones because they work. Because you're just focusing on the incompatibility between mixed-use zones and overlay zones don't mean that they don't work. I'm in favor of removing the height restriction, and I live in one of them. I live behind Day-Night Donuts. And when I go to my backyard, what I see is a metal storage container. I see a dumpster. I see a 12-foot high building that is 4 feet above my raised bed, which is 4 feet above my yard, which is, with the slope, is 3 feet. So it's I see I have a building I look at that's 22 feet higher than my back door. That's on the southeast corner. On the northwest corner, there's a 32-foot building, because of the height difference, and it's 16 feet tall. So I know what people are looking at. And why I say it works is the overlay zone the intent of it is to mitigate the impact of commercial development on neighborhoods. And I would encourage people council to defeat it, remove the height restrictions overlay zone, and make it compatible. Make the two compatible. And take what we've done with overlay zones and scan and extend it to the rest of the city. Because it will improve the city. You walk in the city, people come to the city to look at, to check to see if they want to live here, move a business here. It's the overall impression of the city. You want something where people drive around town and say it works. I like what I see. And that's the best I could hope for. Please consider what I've said and put the interests of Salem before the interests of commercial development or personal preferences. Let's make the city work, and that's one way to make it work. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Up next, we have Lori Walker and then Peter Burgell.
I can hardly hear anyone, so I'm going to move this and see if people can hear better. Good evening, Mayor, City Councilors. For the record, I am Lori Walker, Ward 2. I am speaking as a 40-year resident of Scan, longer than that in Salem. I've waited 2 months to say some of this because at the meeting in July, I was and am still concerned regarding negative comments about Scan in the July 26 council meeting. Some comments by councilors implied that we think we are special. I think we are respective of all neighbors living in Salem. We are humble, working class, professional, and retired people. Some with children, some raising grandchildren. Some own homes, some rent. Half the children at McKinley Elementary School are on free or assisted lunches. We are economically and racially diverse as the rest of Salem. Maybe not more, but we are equal. On my particular street, we have a close community. We walk, we talk, we bike, we share fruits and vegetables. We have a family from Ethiopia that has a group home that they live in, provides care for disabled adults. One woman teaches sewing classes in her home. Children attend local schools. We have apartment buildings. This is all still on the same street. We have construction workers, hardware workers, retirees. Retirees who volunteer all over Salem. Just a block away is the St. Francis Family Transitional Housing. Over 20 units are there, and they are awesome neighbors. I personally volunteer with unhoused in the Salem area, mentally ill, disabled, addicts, warming shelters, orchards. Many are my former patients from the state hospital. I received the Willard C. Marshall Award in 2018 for my volunteer services. Salem has many volunteers from SCAN all over Salem. We care deeply about our city. People who send in emails, come to City Council to testify, are the voices of reason about livability in our community neighborhoods. We embrace progress. We are passionate about our investments in the city. We are also concerned about disruption to livability regarding the overlay zones. We need careful, thoughtful planning, preservation of our neighborhoods throughout Salem. This should be given a very high priority by council and staff. I respectfully ask council members to support our neighbors and neighborhood livability by retaining overlay zones and a 35-foot height limit. Thank you.
Thank you. Peter Burgell.
Could I also add,
Lori.
I'm a 35-year retiree of SEIU, and I support the firefighters too.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Peter Burgell. I live at 1850 Saginaw Street, which is a property that's directly affected by staff's proposal to remove the zoning overlays. I recently had a conversation with Councilor Stapleton in which she explained that her support for this proposal was based largely on equity issues. Specifically, she believes that greater density tends to be coupled with poorer access to services, and therefore equity demands that greater density be shared by all the neighborhoods and not just a few of them. But there are other counterbalancing equity issues involved here. I understand that the city put the overlays in place originally when commercial was widened to assure the residents then that the character of their residential neighborhood would not be degraded by tall buildings along Commercial Street. Those who have moved into the neighborhood since then, including me, have relied on that insurance. The city's plan to now remove that protection is an injustice to those who currently live there. And furthermore, according to Suzanne H. Crowhurst Leonard, a co-founder and director of the Making Cities Livable International Council, quote, "The construction industry is a powerful engine for fueling economic development. Tall buildings offer increased profits for developers. However, the higher a building rises, the more expensive is the construction. Thus, the tallest buildings tend to be luxury units, often for global investors, and in this way, they increase inequality." There's a quote, a citation for that in my written testimony. Indeed, Councilor Nishioka has said words to the effect that we have to let the buildings be big enough to make it worthwhile for contractors to build them. But we do not want to have the quality of our neighborhood determined by its potential profitability to developers. Additionally, Leonard says high-rise buildings are built largely of steel and concrete and are less sustainable than low-rise and mid-rise buildings built largely of wood. Steel and concrete produce a lot of greenhouse gases. Wood traps them. Concrete is 10 times more greenhouse gas intensive than wood. Now, I realize that Councilor Nishioka is suggesting that we might be able to retain our protection against tall buildings by becoming a historic district. That iffy prospect is not what the neighborhood wants. Instead, we ask that the council simply institute a height limit of 35 feet in all residential neighborhoods to preserve their human scale and livability. I completely understand the council goal of increasing density in order to protect the urban growth boundary, but greater density can be achieved within the height limit we propose, and indeed, if equity is its goal, smaller, less expensive units ought to be preferred. Thank you for your attention.
Evan West and then Abby Simpson.
Thank you. Can I start with a question? Abby Simpson had to leave, but she asked if I would read her testimony. Can I do that following mine?
No, but
Okay.
you can submit it to us.
Okay, thank you. Well, Mayor Hoy, members of council, I'm Evan West, resident of Ward 7 and the vice chair of the SCAN Neighborhood Association. The Urban Land Institute tells us, quote, "Growth is inevitable and desirable, but the destruction of community character is not. The question is not whether your part of the world is going to change. The question is how." So what constitutes community character? Over several months, you've heard from your constituents about the importance of careful traffic planning, equitable housing and racial justice, the incredible diversity of our community, historic buildings that tell the stories of our state, and the critical importance of climate resilience and ecological construction. Community character has very little to do with individual property value. Instead, we are in the fight for the soul of our city. These elements of community character aren't exclusive to the SCAN neighborhood at all. In fact, these elements exist in more areas of the city that will likely be considered for proposed development in the coming months and years. Salem is reaching an inflection point where careful planning and execution of policy could create a wealth of opportunity for residents. We can succeed where other cities have failed, but that starts with putting the people first. There is good news. In a beautiful moment of agreement, your constituents concur with the planning department.
Less is more. A 35-foot maximum building height requirement in the overlay zones ties together everything that the city, citizens, and planners want to see happen for the health of our city. A height requirement simplifies development standards, encouraging the mixed-use construction that we know we need. At the same time, common sense building height limits recognize evidence from around the world that tells us there is no such thing as an ecological tall building. Tall buildings tend to become a form of exclusionary zoning that harms low-income communities and communities of color primarily. Research shows that housing costs go up precipitously with every story added. As much as 6 stories may not seem tall, but we ask you to remember that tall is measured proportionately to the existing cityscape. Salem is not Portland. We will put ourselves on the map as a destination for tourism and livability through the qualities that make us unique. Salem is for families. We strive to be a place where every family has the opportunity to thrive. That includes affordable and equitable housing, economic opportunity for small businesses, green spaces with mature trees, and walkable neighborhoods with history and culture. Timeless wisdom reminds us that growth for the sake of growth is the ideology of the cancer cell. I know that our planning department and members of the City Council have a deeper concern for enacting carefully planned and thought out action that will promote community well-being now and well into our future. I'm looking forward to seeing you demonstrate that concern as you vote to maintain a maximum building height requirement in the overlay zones tonight. And with the last part of my time, I'd just like to say, neighbors who are here in support of this issue, would you just please raise your hand? Just want to show that neighbors come out for concerns, just as our firefighters, who we're also very thankful for. Thank you very much for your time and service. I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you. And now we have, last but not least, Bob Courtwright on a totally different topic.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councilors. My name is Bob Courtwright. I'm from Ward 8. I'm here tonight speaking on behalf of 350 Salem. You have a report that you're receiving from your planning staff that is a study of what's called climate-friendly areas. You should have a letter from us, and we also submitted comments to the Planning Commission earlier this year. The basic point that we want to raise to you as the council is that the city really needs to consider additional climate-friendly areas if we're going to meet our climate goals and our housing goals going forward. This study really raises a basic question that warrants your very close attention, and that's about how and where we grow and whether or not we're going to meet our climate goals. To meet our climate goals, Salem, as well as other cities around the state, need to get 30% of our housing in these walkable, mixed-use, climate-friendly neighborhoods. For Salem, that 30% translates to about 30,000 units. The study before you proposes just 3 climate-friendly areas: downtown, north downtown, and West Salem. Collectively, those 3 areas are currently planned for on the order of about 3,000 to 4,000 units of housing. So there's a huge gap between what our plans currently call for and our goals if we're going to achieve climate-friendly areas or achieve our climate-friendly goals. So what that should tell you is that we need to think carefully about how we're going to make up that difference. And a big part of that is we should be considering additional climate-friendly areas. I think your staff's going to raise has raised a couple of comments in response to our suggestion. First, they've said this is what the state rules require. That is, that this calculation that they've gone through that suggests that downtown, for example, has a capacity of 20,000 housing units, meets the state requirements. That may be true, but it really misses the key point of what we're planning for or should be planning for, which is to get, again, 30,000 units in climate-friendly areas. The methodology that the state has gives you a completely unrealistic estimate of what kind of capacity there is in downtown. Second, I think you'll hear that, and I know you know, that we've done our Salem, and as part of that have designated a number of climate-friendly areas. Those help, but generally speaking, they're too small to create the kind of walkable mixed-use area that we need to meet our climate-friendly goals. So, bottom line, the study that you have and are looking at is making dramatic and overestimates of what kind of capacity we have for housing in those 3 climate-friendly areas. We really need to broaden the search and get more housing in climate-friendly areas. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes public comment. And so now we are on to the consent calendar.
I
Councilor
move
Stapleton.
approval of the consent calendar.
Second. Councilor?
Thank you. Consent calendar tonight consists of a few things. Item 3.1A, the September 11th, 2023 draft city council minutes. Item 3.1B, the September 18th, 2023 draft city council work session minutes. Item 3.3A, a continued partnership with Willamette Riverkeepers, and approve allocation of in-kind match for grant application to reduce aquatic invasive weeds in Oxbow. Am I saying that right? Oxbow Slough? And that concludes the consent calendar.
Thank you. Is there a discussion? If the recorder will please call the roll.
Councilor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilor Hoy. Aye. Councilor Nordyke. Aye. Councilor Varney. Aye. Councilor Stapleton.
Aye.
Councilor Nishioka. Aye. Councilor Phillips.
Aye.
Councilor Gwynn. Aye. Mayor Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes. All right. We have no public hearings, but we do have a special order of business, item 5A. Am I going to Councilor Stapleton?
Yes, I'll
Great.
get this going. I move that we advance ordinance bill number 5-23 for the purpose of eliminating the Saginaw Street, Superior Rural, Oxford West Nob Hill, Oxford Hoyt, and Hoyt McGilchrist overlay zones to a second reading.
I'll second.
Moved by Stapleton, seconded by Gwynn. Councilor, to your motion.
Thank you. This is something that I started a while ago with the idea of getting rid of our overlay zones in the one area of town that still has them as a way of really pushing the city forward to our climate goals and to address the issues of equity within the city for development, not only here but across the city, so that it is spread out and that folks have access to hopefully development that we'll see in the future in these areas and access to this wonderful neighborhood. And increase to that core transit area and increasing that walkability that we're aiming for with our climate goals.
Thank you, Councilor. Further discussion? I was fascinated to hear Mr. Courtwright's comments on an unrelated item that actually turned out to be related in my mind, and then the folks who were against this removal clapped for him, and I thought that he was arguing, not intentionally, but arguing for the removal of these overlay zones. So I'm a little bit confused because I was thinking that his testimony would support increased height limits. So it's an interesting thought process on this whole deal. Councilor Nishioka.
May I go ahead and make a substitute motion at this time?
You may.
Thank you. I move to eliminate the Oxford West Nob Hill Zone 3, the Oxford Hoyt Zone 4, the Hoyt McGilchrist Zone 5 overlay zones immediately. I also move to increase the maximum height of Saginaw Street Zone 1 and Superior Rural Zone 2 overlays to 45 feet and remove use development standards unrelated to building height and advance the ordinance to second reading.
Second. Councilor, to your substitute motion.
Thank you. So I have been working very hard at trying to find a compromise that helps facilitate the SCAN neighborhood, Fairmont, and all of these overlay zones, as well as recognizing that development does need to happen through the transit corridor, but limiting that height to 45 feet and because that probably will allow a developer to be able to make the bottom line. So I'm trying to find that happy balance. Zone 4 is already going to be limited to 35 feet, so that zone would basically remain the same as if it was an overlay. Because of the residences that are right next to that, there would be setbacks that would limit the height to 35 feet. So that one is basically a give. That's very nice. I want to try to preserve Zone 1 and Zone 2 because of the neighborhood feels that it's already there, but also allowing some development should it happen. A 45-foot bulk height of building would most likely be about 3 stories. Could be 4 stories, depending upon if it's mixed use and ceiling height of the first floor. I think this 10-foot difference is a compromise that will allow development, but also keeping the height currently with what other buildings are in that area, basically on Commercial Street. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. I actually have a question for staff, and I'm not sure if this would be Ms. Anderson-Ogilvie or someone else, but excuse me, can you tell us, just in practical terms, what the difference is between 35 feet and 45 feet in terms of stories? Like how much, what's the real life impact on the size of a building in terms of how many floors, that sort of thing? Can you just put that into some more easily understandable or relatable terms?
Sure. I'm Austin Ross, planner. I am happy to pull up some slides if visual examples would be helpful.
I think that would be great.
If I can find the mouse here. All right. And all right. So in general, most of our single family residential zone, which is the yellow that you'll see, has a maximum height of 35 feet. So in those zones, we see 2.5 story buildings. For a mixed use type building, we don't frequently see those half stories. So with a 35-foot height maximum, we would likely see 2-story buildings. With a 45-foot height limit, we would likely see 3-story buildings. And with a 55-foot height limit, we would likely see 4-story buildings.
Thank you. Do you have a visual representation of what the substitute motion would do in terms of, your map and?
Sure. So on this map, you can see Saginaw listed as overlay zone 1 on the left. And then 2 is the Superior Rural, also on the west side of Commercial. So the substitute motion would keep those 2 overlay zones and increase the maximum height from 35 to 45 feet. And then it would eliminate the 3 overlay zones on the east side of Commercial Street.
Okay, so on 1 and 2, we'd go up another floor from 2.5 to 3, actually a half a floor, from 2.5 to 3. And the others would go to?
So for zones 3 and 4, the Oxford West Nob Hill and Oxford Hoyt overlay zones are, the base zoning is mixed use 2, so that would be a maximum height of 55 feet. So we'd likely see up to 4-story buildings
there. Up to 4 stories.
And then the Hoyt McGilchrist has a little bit of mixed use 2 and then some mixed use 3, which allows up to 70 feet. And so there we might see 5 to 6-story buildings.
In number 5?
Correct.
Great. Thank you. I think that was really helpful to get a visual. Councilor Stapleton.
So thank you. In the overlay 4, where it's kind of half residential, the setbacks there for the mixed use in the front, how does that impact that?
Right. So the setbacks there are related to building height. So for each foot of building height, above 15 feet, there's a 1.5 feet of setback. So on those properties, the higher the building gets, the further it has to be away from the adjacent residential zoning. So on these properties, because they aren't very deep lots, that setback would kind of cap development potential around 3 stories or about 35-ish feet, or if it were eliminated, maybe you would see, you might see a little bit more, but it would be tough. So in general, we would expect in that area, we would see 1, 2, and potentially 3-story buildings.
Thank you. Did you have more, Councilor? No.
Yes.
Oh, Councilor Nishioka. Sorry, you're both in the same line of sight.
Oh, did you have?
No, it's fine. Go ahead.
Thank you. So let's also talk a little bit about Zone 4, because it does have a slope. So even though it would likely be limited to 35 feet, there is a downslope. So that does end up feeling a little bit higher to those residents on that side, correct?
Yes, we've seen some development previously within these overlay zones, and because of the slope there, the buildings do have, I guess, a larger presence. When those buildings were developed, the existing mixed-use zoning wasn't in place, and so they didn't require much of a setback. And so now, with the increases to the setback, that sort of changes how imposing those buildings might potentially be.
So if I am understanding you correctly, because of our new regulations, those types of developments wouldn't be allowed today?
Correct.
Okay. And even if we did the substitute motion, they still wouldn't be allowed?
Correct.
Thank you. Counselor, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say thank you.
Other questions, discussion? Counselor Stapleton.
Thank you. And thank you, Austin. That was very helpful. Thank you for all your work on this. Counselor Nishioka and I, you all received a great note from her today, kind of explaining with all the maps. Thanks so much for the maps. That's great. She and I actually worked on the second motion that she has drafted here, and that is the one that I was planning on supporting tonight. I think that you have done a really great job working through all of this and trying to find a good balance. And I appreciate that. The only difference really is that those two, what is it, 1 and 2.
Counselor, if I could interrupt you, I just want to make sure you're speaking to the substitute motion and not some motion that hasn't been made. Because I just want to make sure I'm following your argument.
Sure. I wanted to say that although I appreciate all of your work, I still fall in the category of what I was originally hoping for. So I'm not entirely sure that I can support your first motion. How's that, Mayor?
Thank you. I understood
Yeah.
that. Yes, thank you. Counselor Phillips.
And speaking to the substitute motion, is it like, and I don't mean to ask it directly, maybe staff can help, or if the maker of the motion could help. Is this different than what we already considered as like a compromise that did not get a majority on council? I mean, there's some more specificity, it feels like, in this, but.
Counselor, if you could turn your microphone on, and so we can all hear.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The difference is that 1 and 2 would be increasing their overlay height from 35 to 45 feet, and that they would be retained as overlays with all other requirements removed, simply the maximum height being 45 feet.
And if I may, I'm supportive of this motion. I'm not sure if we'll have a majority, but I don't want to speak for everybody. So I plan to vote yes on this, and I'm looking for a compromise. I do think neighborhoods have complexity. I get the desire to make it simple and remove all the overlay zones. I still struggle with that, although it's helpful to hear that, with the setbacks, there's a lot of practical limits that would keep the height down regardless. So that kind of assuages some of my fears, but I'm still looking for a compromise. I'm not sure that this is it, but I do plan to support this one.
Thank you, Counselor. I'll repeat what I said at our last meeting. I like the idea that it creates consistency with our state street plan. I think that's a really good thing. In very similar situations, historic neighborhood, abutting a commercial area, I feel like this makes consistency with that, and so that makes a lot of sense. I like the substitute motion. I think it is a good middle ground. I don't think one extra story is going to have the devastating impacts on the neighborhood that maybe people are worried about. I just don't see that as one. It's not like we're putting a high rise there. It's one more story. It's actually really a half a story in a lot of places. I just don't see that as a huge impact, and it helps us get to our density goals and improve access to transit and all sorts of things, because the bottom line is we need more housing and we're running out of room, and every part of Salem needs to play their part. And this is, I think, is a really artful way of a historic neighborhood being allowed to participate in that. And so I like it. Good work. Other conversation. Councilor Gonzalez.
You know, I usually, my stance has always been just equal, you know, just rid of all overlay zones. But looking at this area and knowing, you know, actually going through some development right now with the city, and then looking at these lots, knowing what could and couldn't, might not change, just looking at it from a building point of view, is one way. But I love negotiation. You know, I love seeing hundreds of people coming. I like it, even though it keeps us up a little later. There's something about that I wish more people, I wish these rooms were packed every day. You know, so when I see Councilor Nishioka negotiating and just everybody walking away with either maybe not feeling 100%, you know, this job that we do is not black and white all the time. You know, it's really about what we can get done. So I'm going to be supporting the motion.
Thank you, Councilor. Is there further discussion? Councilor Nordyke. I was looking at you and said her name. I don't know why.
No worries, no worries. So first of all, I want to thank the residents for coming down and offering your testimony yet again, and also for going dead last after a very spirited discussion from our firefighters and other public safety officials. So thank you for waiting it out. I am a firm believer that the neighbors know the neighborhood better than everybody. That a lot of times, the first time I look at a planning decision, I'm looking at it from a Google Maps point of view. But as indicated in the testimony tonight, you folks know the precise impact that these zoning changes can have. So I was supportive when this issue first came up earlier this year, protecting the overlay zones and protecting the neighborhood as is. But I don't think there is enough support from council to give the level of preservation that the neighborhood wants, which is why politics is often the art of compromise. And so I know that your city councilor has worked really hard to identify that level of compromise and to do her best to thread the needle, which is why I'm supporting her motion. Thank you. And please keep coming to council. Please keep speaking up. I think tonight is indicative of the impact that testimony can have on us, that we're human beings, and that when people speak their mind and speak their truths about things that impact their everyday lives, it has a real opportunity to resonate with us as fellow human beings on planet Earth. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Varney, did I see your hand?
Oh,
yes.
Thank you, Mayor Hoy. I wanted to mention, well, thank you for coming in and providing the public comment. I really appreciated it. You know, I love where I live too, and I know changes are really, really difficult. I also appreciated Mr. Wigg's testimony talking about keeping things no greater than 4 stories. And I think that this motion fits into that. In terms of neighborhoods, you know, the quality of your neighborhood is determined by the people who live there, not whether it's the steel or the concrete or the wood. It's the people there. And so I really appreciated Lori's testimony with the description of a connected and congenial neighborhood. I've seen that at night outs in my neighborhoods as well. And to me, spreading that compassion to those who maybe can't afford to live in a single family home, pulling them into that fold and introducing them to that neighborhood is a fantastic opportunity here and a vision that we have for families and neighborhoods. And so in addition, this motion addresses our goal of housing along the transit corridor. And then finally, thank you, Councilor Nishioka. I feel compromise. I think this is an excellent compromise, and I am in support of this.
Thank you, Councilor. Further discussion? Councilor Gwynn.
I was just going to say I too will support the motion, and I know you've worked really hard with the neighborhood, and I feel like although it's probably not a perfect solution for the neighbors, the reality is probably nothing's going to happen here for a very long time. Because for anyone to develop these properties, they're likely going to have to buy multiple properties to do any sort of mixed use project there. And this does help us achieve those climate and friendly and our Salem goals. So I can't not support it. So thank you so much for your work.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Nishioka.
Yes, thank you one more time to the planning department. You were amazing. Austin, thank you very much for all of the emails that you accepted and responded to. And thank you for all of the people behind me in coming down and providing testimony and working with me through this and helping me understand your needs, but at the same time recognizing that the compromise needed to be made.
Thank you, Councilor. I think it's fitting that we had the planning proclamation tonight. This is the ultimate planning issue. So, any further discussion, or are we ready to vote? All right, I think we're ready to vote.
Counselor Hoy.
Aye.
Counselor Nordike. Aye. Counselor Varney.
Aye.
Counselor Stapleton.
I'll support you, sis. Aye.
Counselor Nishioka.
Aye.
Counselor Phillips.
Aye.
Counselor Gwynn.
Aye.
Counselor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Mayor Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes. All right. We don't generally do the clapping thing. I allowed it tonight, but let's not make that a habit, just FYI. Seemed like an appropriate thing to allow tonight, but yeah. All right, now we're going to be on to information reports, and we're going to take this thing home. So, item 6A, anything on that one? Councilor Varney.
Sorry, but I was just kind of curious. What is a good definition, brief definition of a climate-friendly area?
Oh boy, Lisa Anderson Ogilvy is just, Eunice Kim is just waiting to come down on that one. This is her area.
I thought for anyone listening, because we use it almost like an acronym.
Yeah.
And I was just curious, what's a definition of it?
De-wonkify that for us, Eunice, will you?
Sure. Eunice Kim, Planning Division. It's essentially a place where you have walkable mixed use, and it's a place that's served by bicycle, pedestrian, and transit, so people can get around without a car. That's the kind of climate-friendly portion of it. So it's kind of higher density mixed-use areas. The things we've been planning for with our Salem.
And while it's not part of it, those hubs that we had eliminated so many of would have really kind of gone in that right direction, right?
Correct.
Sorry to bring that up on planning night. All right, anything else? Yeah, Councilor Stapleton.
Eunice.
Oh,
sorry. Yeah, I have a question for you. So can you talk to everybody here about why we didn't, in our Salem process, we really focused on these corridors and the downtown area, which kind of created this great area that we kind of envision these high density, walkable, transit, bike friendly areas. So can you tell us why those core transit areas were not included in this?
Sure. So a couple things. First of all, the transit corridors, when the state rules came out, there was a very strict width requirement. The corridors couldn't exceed or had to be a minimum width. And a lot of our corridors kind of go in and out where it's mixed use. And as you saw, like on Commercial Street, there's bordered by residential. And so we wanted to make sure, of course, we met state rules. So we couldn't include some of our more narrow corridors, even though those are places where we want walkable mixed use development. And also we did the analysis with the COG looking at the downtown, North Downtown, Riverfront, Inner West Salem, and those areas alone met the state requirements that Bob referred to in terms of the number of housing units, the capacity that they could accommodate, so we didn't need to include those corridors. That being said, all the zoning of those areas, those corridors, already align with those state rules for example, 15 units per acre minimum density. We knew those rules were coming during our Salem, so we did change the zoning and the zoning code to align with them. So while they're not circled on the map, they do align in terms of the uses they allow and the densities that are required.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eunice. Don't go away. I know I have one for you, and I think Councilor Gwynn does too. Could you, just while you're at the podium, could you speak to Mr. Courtwright's comments on capacity and as it relates to the state goals? And Can you just give us your reaction to that?
Correct. So I think what he was saying is that the state rules, the way they're set up, is there's a very specific calculation on number of stories you need to assume, number of units per story, etc. And they're pretty ambitious. They would assume roughly 15,000 units in our downtown, which is a lot. So we did meet the state rules in terms of that calculation, but in terms of planning, the real planning that we had was really during our Salem. And so that's where we looked at where do we want mixed use nodes, corridors, etc. So I think he's pointing to that calculation. We did talk to the state. We were very involved in the rulemaking and we pointed these things out, but the state set the rules and we're just trying to comply with them.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I believe Councilor Gwen has a question for you.
Thanks, Eunice. So my question is, this is a study.
Correct.
But there's going to be more that we have to do later, correct?
Yes, we have a lot more to do later, correct. This is just one small part of the climate-friendly equitable rules that we need to comply with, including updating our transportation system plan, making more changes to our land use. So one of the changes, for example, that for our downtown, for example, we have a 20 units per acre minimum density right now. The rules call for 25. So at some point when we actually go to implement these, so this is the study phase, we look and see if it's possible, we come back and implement it, you will see a code amendment that ups that minimum density downtown to 25 units per acre. So those are some of the small kind of tweaks we need to make to fully comply with the rules in the future.
Thank you. Anything else on 6A? All right, how about 6B? 6C, Councilor Varney.
I just had to put in a friendly plug for the trees. I was tonight we are talking about compromise a lot. I mean, it started out with 487 trees, and they're only removing, they're going to have a preservation rate of 87%. For the significant trees that are on site, and I think 86 or something for all of them. And the way that was, they were able to save more significant trees is they increased the critical root zone around some of the non-significant trees. Anyway, I just wanted to mention that I like the compromise and the saving trees.
Thank you, Councilor. Item 6D. All right. You have comments, Mr. City Manager?
At the end.
At the end. All right. So we have no ordinances this evening. We already disposed of item number 8. We are back to our City Manager.
I would just like to say good morning to Councilor Hoy, who it is now 5 a.m. in Italy. So good morning and have a nice day today.
All right. And seeing no further business, we are adjourned.